should Mamdani become the mayor, he's going to call his police commission and says, look, the one community I want you to protect is the Jewish community. The last thing I want on my plate is for someone to accuse me that I haven't been protecting it. Mm-hmm. And even when it comes to yeshivas, I don't think he's going to interfere. I think he's going to say, look, I have too much on my plate right now. I'll work very collegially with the yeshiva community, and they'll be surprised.
Hello and welcome to the Moster Show. My name is Naftali Moster and I'm the host of this podcast. I hope you enjoyed the first episode already. If not, please go ahead and find it on YouTube or Spotify or Apple. I know right now we're still having an issue where some of the results come up as Monster instead of Moster, but hopefully as we grow this show through your interactions and follows and subscriptions, the Moster Show will come up prominently on the search results. In the meantime, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify and Apple, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. My guest today is renowned advocate and lobbyist Ezra Friedlander. He obviously has done a lot of work for the Haredi community, but his lobbying services go well beyond that as well. The main topic for today is the upcoming New York City mayoral elections. A few things I want to add before we begin. First, I hope to do a few episodes on this topic in the lead up to the election, because this is an issue of great importance to the Jewish community and especially the Orthodox community, which is a little bit more conservative leaning. Second, things change very quickly. We're recording this on Friday afternoon, September 19th, and we don't know if it'll publish before Rosh Hashanah or after. There are rumors that the incumbent mayor, Eric Adams, might drop out any day or any minute, in which case some of the discussions we're going to have are going to be moot by the time it airs. Nonetheless, we will be discussing how the community feels towards Mamdani and others who are still in the race. So keep listening, and I hope it'll be an informed discussion. This episode is sponsored by Elite Advisors. Developers, warehouse operators, landlords, nursing home owners. Have you ever felt like you're hitting a wall with City Hall? The permits, the inspections, the endless regulations. Sometimes it feels like the system is built to slow you down. And while you wait, the clock is ticking. Every day of delays costs you money, causes stress, and puts the entire project at risk. That's why it's so important to have a team that not only knows the rules, but knows how to get things done in New Jersey. A team that's been in the trenches, dealt with these municipalities, and understands the system from the inside out. That's where Elite Advisors comes in. With over 16 years of hands-on experience as developers and more than 1,000 apartment permits secured, Elite Advisors has done it all. Certificate of occupancy, zoning permits, navigating government regulations, even property management and maintenance. When you work with Elite Advisors, you're not just hiring a consultant, you're bringing on a partner who knows the people, the process, and the pressure points. In New Jersey real estate, that kind of experience is priceless. Call them at 551-251-1300 or email them at eliteadvisorsnj@gmail.com. If you would like to be a sponsor of an episode or advertise your business, please email The Moster Show at info@themostershow.com. Thank you for joining us, Ezra, and for inviting us into your home.
Welcome.
So let's begin with who you are and your place in the community. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
I was born here in Borough Park. My my father was actually born in Budapest, but he came to Borough Park as a kid, as a 6-month-old child. So my family has been here in this community for close to 80 years now. Mm-hmm. My grandfather was the previous Liskeva. He established one of the first Hasidic shuls here in the community. This is my home. Literally, figuratively, this is where we're raising our children.
What about yourself, as your role in the community, as an advocate? And
so I don't have an official role. Many assign me the title of Askin, which I don't deserve, because I am a hired professional. Mm-hmm. I'm a consultant, lobbyist, so I do advocate professionally, and sometimes people don't understand the distinction between a professional lobbyist and an advocate, a volunteer advocate, or a askin. But that's what I do professionally. I started out interested in politics as a kid, literally as a kid, and hopefully when I grow up, I guess I'll graduate to other passions.
Great, great. So, as part of your previous work, you've had a close relationship with Friedlander, who was
Correct.
a councilman at the time, I believe, representing this.
This neighborhood,
This district.
parts of this neighborhood. Actually, this block wasn't his district where I live right now.
Was or wasn't?
Was.
Was in his
He
district.
had, I would say maybe less than probably a third of Borough Park,
Right.
but a nice chunk of it.
Did you support him in the primary election for New York City mayor?
Brad, of course, absolutely, yes.
So, of the entire slate of candidates, you supported Brad?
Yeah, Brad was my number one.
Wow,
Scott Stringer was my number two.
interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very close to both of them
Right.
on a personal level and professionally. My wife worked for Brad in the city council for the duration of his term, so we're very, very close. Brad and I are very, very close.
Right.
And so is Scott Stringer, and I like the mayor too, by the way.
Mayor Eric Adams.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
Right. So, are you comfortable telling us whom you're planning on voting for in the general election?
I don't know. It's a very good question. I don't know. I asked myself that same question, and I don't have the answer.
Got it.
We're in a very difficult moment right now,
Right.
because there's no defined person who the community is uniting behind. So it's a very interesting scenario where we're in it right now.
I was going to ask you, my next question was going to be that in your view, obviously no one knows exactly where the entire community stands, but I was going to ask you, in your view, where does the Haredi Jewish community stand on the mayoral race?
Look, in personality-wise, the community likes Eric Adams the most. The people feel that what the polls reflect, as of today, Friday, September
19th?
September the 19th, that Eric Adams cannot win. He may not even be in the race when this broadcast airs. We don't know.
Right.
So people look towards Cuomo as a possibility, but people don't like Andrew Cuomo. In fact, they dislike Andrew Cuomo. And obviously you have Mamdani, who obviously the community doesn't support. And I'm a contrarian on that, which we can get into soon.
I see.
Yeah, so the community isn't, the good, if you look at the silver lining, what the community is doing, what they should have done 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, starting probably 50 years ago we were good, is register and vote. And we haven't done it.
No?
No, absolutely not. The Orthodox Jewish community has the capacity to decide, who the next mayor should be.
In the general or just in the primary?
No, I would say even in the general. First of all, most of the time, the primary is the general.
I get that.
But yes, we have enough votes. And if we vote, everyone uses the four-letter word, the block vote. But if we truly have the block vote,
Right.
we could decide who the next mayor should be.
Right. So you touched upon this already, and we're going to talk later about Cuomo and such. But do you think that the community feels like they were just given a bunch of bad choices, or maybe the community made a bad sort of bet on Eric Adams sort of surviving this, riding this out, and maybe they should have coalesced, let's say, around Scott Stringer or around even someone like Zelna Myrie? Do you think that's something that goes through people's minds?
Look, in this race, we simply did not come out and vote. Yeah, I like Senator Myrie. He's a good guy. I actually ranked him as well. He's a very smart guy. He's a good guy. But look, we just didn't vote in the numbers
Really?
that we should have. It's very simple. I have a very simple retort. People always criticize. I say, did you vote? Oh, no, you're a Democrat. I don't want to vote for you. And I said, you know what? Let me put it to you this way. You daven in a shul? Yes. Let's assume you have a complaint against the shul. And the shul tells you, you want to have a voice? Give me $1 and you have a membership, and then you can voice your complaint. You would say, for $1, of course. Here you don't even have to pay $1. You have the right to vote. If you don't vote,
right,
you're out of the equation.
Right. I hear. Very good. So I know that some in the community were angry at Governor Cuomo, former Governor Cuomo, about his actions during COVID, when he was specifically targeting this community. He was designating certain, I think he called them red zones. Do you feel like that was real anger, or do most people know that that was the exception to an otherwise very strong and warm relationship, and perhaps COVID, nobody knew what was going on, and people, were acting, they had to act quickly and drastically. In other words, I'm trying to figure out if the majority of the community, when they say, oh, he did this during COVID, do they mean it, or is this just their way of saying, look, I prefer the Republican, whoever that is?
No, I think it was justifiable anger.
Really?
Yes, I remember those days. I wasn't involved because I'm not a community leader.
Right.
I don't represent the community in official capacity or even in an unofficial capacity.
Right.
I do interact with government professionally.
Right.
Well, no, but there was real anger, and there's justifiable anger. It wasn't just, I want to support the Republican.
I see.
And it's funny because Andrew Cuomo, as governor, advocated for the community. He was
Right.
He was someone that the community worked with. He could legitimately come to the community and say, I'm a friend. But there's something about his personality that says something about the person. And simply put, just not a nice person.
Mm-hmm.
And in politics, that sometimes catches up with you.
Do you think he's too full of himself, he's too arrogant? In fact, someone once told me that during the primaries, he told community leaders, you better support me or else.
I believe that to be true. I believe that to be true.
That's his personality, right?
Yeah, he's just, he's just a bully.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I meet hundreds, maybe even thousands of elected officials. And sometimes you meet a person that's just a nice person. Take Hakeem Jeffries.
Mm-hmm.
He's now the Democratic leader of the House of Representatives. In all likelihood, he'll probably be a speaker one day. He sees me on the Amtrak when he first got elected to Congress. I met him once as an assembly person, but we just had a little goodbye. He saw me 3 compartments ahead of him, walked over to me and said, hey, I'm going to the Capitol. If you're in a rush, if you need a ride, come with me.
Amazing.
Never donated $1 to his campaign, never
Wow.
asked me.
Wow.
I mean, he knows I'm not in his district. He's just really a nice guy.
He knew where you were heading. He's going there as well.
He assumed I'm going to the Congress.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not. And I said, let me walk over. And then I realized I had a meeting, and I went back. I said, yeah, I could take a ride. He said, sure, come with me. And he got into an aide. He didn't have a motorcade. Just simply a nice guy. And other people tell me the same thing.
Wow.
So my point is that if you're nice to someone, you're nice to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, we could talk about that versus, you have to balance it against competence. But
And Andrew Cuomo was a competent guy.
Right.
I like what he did with the.
So if you were to think, if your only determination or decision making was about who's the most competent candidate in the race, who would you go for?
In the general.
In the general.
Probably would be Andrew Cuomo. Yeah,
Right.
without thinking too deep,
Right.
it would probably be Andrew Cuomo. But politics is a people business.
Right.
They want to touch you, they want to feel you, they want to connect with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew Cuomo, I like what he did with Moynihan, with the infrastructure, with the airports.
Right.
I like this. Maybe you need something that's tough,
Right.
son of a gun to get things going. But it's a balance.
It's so true. Do you think that a lot of people in the community plan to vote for Curtis Lewa, knowing that he has 0 chance of getting elected?
There's a good chance they might do that. Yeah.
Meaning-
look, everything is up in the air right now, but there's a good chance that he might actually, that he can pick up a lot of support as of now. Again,
Right.
we don't know what tomorrow would bring.
Yes.
And even though Curtis Lewa has a very checkered history, I mean, I think he's generally a good guy, but he said some unacceptable things.
Right.
I mean, and I believe in forgiving people.
Right.
I really, really do. But he went a little bit too deep and a little bit too far.
Yeah.
And then
He leaned into his talk show host kind of mentality or personality. I get that. I noticed that the ads around the race, have basically come to a halt. Until a few weeks ago, I mean, even after the primary, there were still some ads I saw, like from a PAC supporting Eric Adams, attacking Governor Cuomo, and it talked about how his vote or his signing of the bail reform bill basically resulted in unsafe streets. But I saw it basically all came to a halt. It's sort of like, what does this mean? It's almost like the community, I'm talking about like newspapers in the community, Mishpacha, Flatbush Jewish Journal. Does it mean that the community has already made a decision? Or does it mean that they're still deciding, they can't decide, and for now it's sort of like hands off? Or perhaps they've come to some sort of realization that, Zora Mamdani is going to become mayor, and we might as well sort of lay the groundwork for that and figure out ways to make that work.
No, I don't think it's that. I know which ad you're referring to. I saw it as well. I just think that the people behind those ads are probably pausing right now because they themselves don't know what the future holds for them. So it's probably a budgetary, if anything, to see where are we going. Again, I'm just speculating. I don't know this. But yeah, I did see those ads, and now I don't see them anymore. So I asked myself the same question.
So earlier you said something when we were talking about like who the community favors or supports. You said they don't like Cuomo, but obviously they don't like Mamdani. And I'm wondering, let's start digging into that a little bit. What concerns you most, and I guess by extension, when I say you, I also mean the community, about a Mamdani mayorship?
Look, I want the city to be successful. For the city to be successful, you need a tax base. You need an economic base. That's really the scary part. If you have someone, and I believe that when you become the mayor, and even today his positions are not as pronounced as they were 6 months ago or even 6 weeks ago. But still, at the end of the day, you want to inspire confidence. You want the city to function efficiently. That's really what scares me the most. As someone who lives here in Borough Park, am I afraid of, I'm a contrarian. I actually believe that should Mamdani become the mayor, he's going to call his police commission and says, look, the one community I want you to protect is the Jewish community. The last thing I want on my plate is for someone to accuse me that I haven't been protecting it. Mm-hmm. And even when it comes to yeshivas, I don't think he's going to interfere. I think he's going to say, look, I have too much on my plate right now. I'll work very collegially with the yeshiva community, and they'll be surprised. That's my gut feeling without knowing anything. I've never spoken to this person in my life. Right. So I think they'll be surprised because I'm a contrarian. That's how I think it always is. Right. If there would be a frum mayor, he would say, I can't do anything for you because I'm frum and you're frum. I've met those people before. Yeah. The people with the yarmulkes, sometimes they're very afraid to give you a warm shalom aleichem because we're in a place where there are no frum people, so we can't hang out together.
They're afraid of being accused of showing favoritism to their own kind.
Yeah. So
it's a known thing, right? It's been said about presidents and mayors that sometimes the non-Jewish one is better, more supportive, more better for the community. I totally get that. And I was going to get to some of these things. I've written up some questions here. So let me try to go through some of them. So do you think Mamdani is inexperienced and potentially incompetent? He's 33 years old, right? I don't think he's ever held a real job, let alone one overseeing a big operation. He is an assembly member, but that's pretty much it. So do you feel like that's one big concern that people in this community have?
I don't think that's the concern that they have at all.
Why not?
I think the fact that Barack Obama was a senator for less than 2 years and he became the president of the United States. So I don't think people are saying, well, he needs to have a PhD in economics and he needs to run the largest real estate development firm, and then he needs to be on Wall Street for 5 years so he understands how the bond market works. I don't think that's what people.
Interesting.
People are not looking at Mamdani and judging him on that. They are afraid. They understand that he comes from a different place than the community does. You just asked about incompetence. Look, I think that government is inherently incompetent. Incompetent. I mean, that's, I always like to joke, I'm a lobbyist. If government functioned the way they should, I would be out of business. So sometimes, it's true, sometimes I'm very frustrated and I literally knock my head against the wall, and then someone on my staff would remind me,
This pays your bills.
yeah, it really does, and it's frustrating.
Right.
People don't understand how government works.
Right.
And the fact that he's not from, we can get to that later.
And also, I guess, there's been some talk that Friedlander, again, your friend, and I guess one's client, is angling to
He
be...
wasn't really a client, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I may have placed a few ads for him here and there, but he was never a client.
Okay.
As far as I can.
So there's talk that he was angling to become the first deputy mayor. So, first of all, would you support that?
If Mamdani asked me if Friedlander should be first deputy mayor, I'd say absolutely.
Right.
Brad is a very, very talented, bright, and I think a very good manager.
Do you think community leaders here would support that position as well?
They would feel very comfortable with Friedlander.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's surprising, because Friedlander and Zora Mamdani, basically they cross-endorsed each other. They have similar positions on Israel, maybe not about the phrase, globalize the Intifada, but they have similar positions on Israel, and they're just generally progressively aligned. So that's surprising to hear. But I guess they've formed some type of understanding with Friedlander, so they feel comfortable.
It comes down, again, they know Friedlander. They've worked with him.
Right.
They understand that maybe his positions are not in sync with their way of thinking, but at the end of the day, he has a very strong relationship and personal relationship
Right.
with the majority of Jewish leaders, and
Right.
and I think they'd feel very comfortable with
Right.
Friedlander as the first deputy.
Right. So you kind of touched on this already about, ensuring safety of this community and perhaps about the city in general. But let me just ask you this again. Do you think Mamdani's views on policing might make this community less safe in any way?
No, he's changed his position on policing,
On defunding?
on defunding the police. And I hear what he's saying with the police, that they're not equipped to handle mental health issues. I don't know if you remember Gideon Bush.
Yes.
He was killed in this community by cops.
He was waving a hammer, but
He was waving a
mentally
hammer.
ill, right?
He was, I didn't diagnose him, but I know, that's what they say, that there was no reason that he should have been
Right.
shot at or killed. So there's something to what Mamdani is saying. And sometimes police enjoy roughing you up a little bit too much. Have you ever seen when there's a police line and you want to cross the street, you're in Midtown Manhattan, and you need to go across, and there's a parade, and it's raining, and if you don't go across, you're gonna have to go 7 blocks in the wrong direction to get to a train stop. And you say, can I just go 10 feet and there's a train right there? They'll say no, and they'll look at you, and there's something to it. I mean, I support the police.
Right.
And we need to have a police force.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that they're not, they're not open to criticism. And I'm not defending what Mamdani said. Don't let anyone take my words out of context.
Right.
But there's the Department of Community Services, or whatever the name is. It could be there's some validity in that. But do I believe he's going to defund the police? The answer is absolutely not. I
Right.
think he's backed away from that position.
You bring up a very interesting topic that for many in the community, I'm sure there's a bit of a sort of an inherent or internal contradiction. On the one hand, I know for a fact that the vast majority of the community wants very, very strong policing. Very strong policing. They don't like any of this talk about defunding, about diverting. They want more police, a good police presence, because there's a sense, I think, in this community that we do no wrong. We don't steal. We don't beat up people for no reason. We don't murder. So yeah, we want police.
Until someone gets arrested for an expired license on Erev Shabbos at 3 p.m. and Shabbos is 4:10, and they put him into central booking. That's when they don't like the police.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. So that's the flip side.
Yeah,
So that's the flip side. There's this contradiction, but it's not like, oh look, you like the police only when it suits you. It's a nuanced thing. You know, people want to feel safe, but they also want the police to be here to make their lives comfortable. Safe, comfortable. Aside from that, stay out, let us run our business, our community. I get that. But I also get the point you made that Mamdani is basically saying the same in a more sort of progressive language.
No, he was very extreme. He was very extreme. You can't sugarcoat it. He was very
Right.
extreme. Look, we all respect police officers.
Right.
We want police officers to be visible. We don't want to tie their hands that they feel that they
Right.
cannot protect the community. And like everything else in life, it's a balancing act.
You know, Mamdani used to use these slogans like, you know, I don't remember the exact, something like trans rights equals defund the police, something like that. It's one of his old tweets from going back from 2020. So yeah, that's a completely different kind of approach to policing. But are you concerned about his social views, such as that, and how he would try to use it, apply it, or not to this community?
Look, no mayor of New York City getting elected today in the Democratic Party is going to have the support on the social issues from this community.
Mm-hmm.
That's a given.
Right.
Whether it's Mamdani or Friedlander or even Eric Adams, that's not. The question is, can we live our lives
Right.
without government interference?
Right.
That's the gist of it. And I think this community, more than any other issue, wants to be able to raise their families without
Right.
government telling them, you're not doing things correct.
Mhm.
That's what it boils down to.
Right.
I don't think anyone in this community wants to tell somebody else.
Right.
The only reason why there's friction is when we feel that it's starting to affect our ability to do what we want to do as parents, as educators.
Right. I'm going to get to that question about education in a minute, but first I wanted to ask you one last one before we get to that. Do you think his negative views towards Israel and the people he then will uplift in his administration and just in general by giving them a sort of a podium, do you think that could in some ways hurt or bother the community?
Look, of course it bothers the community. There's no question that it bothers the community. The question is, if he becomes mayor, how will that affect his relationship with the community? I think that's really what you want to get at. He's not going to change his views, and the community won't change their views.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, can there be a meeting of the minds where we agree to disagree?
Right.
And he doesn't, look, he's a very smart guy.
Right.
He's very, very talented.
Right.
He's super talented. He's up there with Obama, with a Clinton. He knows what he's doing. He's very charismatic.
Right.
And I think he's very smart too. So he's going to govern in a way, I believe, that he'll leave enough room for people to feel like when it comes to the parade, I think the Israeli Day parade, I think there was a question, he sent a message or a statement, I think I'm paraphrasing this. Of course the parade will go on. Like he'll probably not, I don't think he'll participate, which is very shocking, you know?
Right.
Could you imagine the
Right.
mayor of New York
Not
City?
showing up at the
parade? I mean, it's just, so, but it's going to be very interesting dynamic.
Right.
It's
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of which, of the yeshiva issue, so on the issue of yeshivas and substantial equivalency, Mamdani's been surprisingly vague and I think deferential to the schools. He said he didn't believe in withholding funds for non-compliance, that he said publicly at a debate, and he told Hasidic leaders the following, quote, "The issue of your education is something I will listen to your leaders. I will work to protect you from anyone who wants to disturb your way of life." So do you think that's one area at least where the community can breathe a sigh of relief, knowing that he won't, like you said, interfere in their lifestyle and the way they want to raise their kids, and won't bother them about the education standards?
I think the answer is yes, based on your quote. I never knew about that quote, but I just got the feeling about, I think there was a debate where security funding was raised. Would you withhold funding?
Right.
And he said he would not.
Right.
That I saw. So yeah, I mean, that's a gut feeling I have in understanding human nature. I believe on the issue he'll be surprisingly cooperative.
Right.
As he should be, as any mayor should be,
Right.
because I think it's the right position to take.
Mm-hmm.
I think politically, it's going to be easy for him to do that. I don't think anyone will fault him for that, and I think it's the right position.
Well, you don't think his sort of base on the far left will fault him for some of it?
No, because they're going to be.
If they see him showing up at the Israeli Day Parade, again, I know
They'll be more upset at him for showing up at the Israeli Day Parade than for any cooperation that he extends to the yeshiva community, as it should be. I think the yeshiva issue is an issue that the community should be very protective of,
Right.
and the mayor should be very concerned about the public schools. He should be very concerned about the public schools.
True.
And once he resolves that problem, and he gets an A plus, then he
could turn his attention.
then
to
he
the
could
yeshivas.
turn his attention to the yeshivas. Until then,
I totally hear you.
when I go on the train, I used to go on the train at the route to Manhattan. When I had a meeting at 4 o'clock. I would leave at 2:30, and the public schools kids would come out. I got a headache because they would just destroy that train compartment. So let him focus on the public schools, and I would be very supportive of any mayor to try to fix the public schools.
Right. Do you feel like there's some sort of hope? Meaning, again, assuming that Mamdani is not a first choice, not an ideal choice, do you think, based on the current political reality, that there's any chance that Eric Adams drops out, Curtis Lewa drops out, and it's purely a one-on-one race, head-to-head race between Cuomo and Mamdani, or we're talking 7 weeks or so before the election, and it's no longer like feasible? What do you think?
Probably no longer feasible, but in life, you never say never. I mean, look, Eric Adams would have to literally move out of the city to take his name off the ballot.
Right.
I think that's what he would have to do. And I think the Bolden, the other guy, is like maybe, and then Cuomo, I mean, look, you would have to have Bloomberg money poured in overnight. It would be...
Well, Bloomberg money already came in during the primaries.
Yeah, but
$8
no.
million.
Yeah, but the way Bloomberg spent it for his own election, like someone would have to spend like 5 people would have to put up 200 million. But I don't think it's up to money anymore. I think we'll probably be beyond that already.
Okay, I see. So in general, you're saying you're not super concerned about a Mamdani mayorship. It's not ideal, but you feel like the community will find common ground and find a good way to work with him.
Look, the expectations are so low for the community. I'm a contrarian, so I think that we're going to do much better than anticipated.
Yeah.
But the average person in this community looks at that as doomsday. So if they wake up on January 2 and they say, wow, they haven't come, they're not rounding us up, we can still live here. They didn't close the yeshivas, they didn't close the schools. They'll say, maybe it's not so bad. So I'm a contrarian. I think there will be, once he gets elected mayor, I promise you, without knowing what I'm saying, that there will be meetings with the mayor, and they'll be sitting around the table, and they'll smile at the end, and there'll be a statement, and there'll be another meeting, and there'll be an initiative and a policy rollout. That's what I feel. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's my gut feeling.
You're very optimistic. Do you think he's going to keep that? Eric Adams created this Jewish, or maybe it's a religious advisory committee. I can't remember if it's Jewish. Sorry.
I think it's a Jewish advisory council.
I think, yeah, like a Jewish advisory council. Do you think Mamdani would keep it up?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He definitely would.
Mm-hmm.
No question that he would.
You know, the sense I'm getting from you is very much like I'm hearing from Bill de Blasio on television, basically saying, yeah, I know how he campaigned, but I know him, he's going to be pragmatic. And then after de Blasio started saying it, then Mamdani himself started telling it to the New York Times and others, basically backing off from some of his positions, even pledging to apologize to the NYPD. So it seems like you feel similarly. Like, yes, he had to campaign as for his base, but he's going to end up somewhere more pragmatic.
Look, people need to take a step back. Do you know what it means for a guy like Mamdani to become the mayor of New York City? Do you know that he wasn't a citizen until 2018? If I'm correct, he was elected to the assembly. What, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 terms, 3 terms, not even.
Not 3, maybe 2.
Maybe 2 terms. He didn't think he would be even a minor footnote in this race.
Wow.
Had he known that, he probably would have had different positions, and he never would have gotten elected.
Mm-hmm.
He got elected precisely because he was who he was. He energized people who never voted. He brought them out. It was a perfect storm for him. The others, Eric Adams had his problems. Andrew had his problems. Scott had his problems.
Right.
Brad. So, it was, I mean, as a firm person, I believe everything. There's a higher power. There's a God. There's Hashem, and I mean, I'm not going to get into that because there's no point. But it wasn't as if he was elected to the assembly, then he became a borough president, and then he was a comptroller. The normal trajectory. It's supernatural. So it's.
So you're saying a guy like him is going to be pragmatic. He's going to be.
He has to be. Look, he has no choice. He has to be. He's not a mayor. Has very limited power. It's a strong office to hold. It's a bully pulpit, and you have to be a very good administrator.
Right.
But you cannot. You need the government. You need state government. What did they say? The city is a creature of the state.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of give and take. He cannot.
Basically, you're saying there are a lot of checks and balances.
Correct.
He's not going to be able to just run roughshod over, the community and such.
That is correct.
Interesting. All right, let's turn to a different topic. You've worked with Congressman Jerry Nadler as well, right?
Correct. I was on the political side, not on the government side. I represented him as a client, yes.
Right. So I'm sure you saw he recently announced that he is going to retire from Congress after this term. So what do you make of that?
Look, there's a career is a career. I didn't expect it.
Huh?
I actually saw him we bumped into each other on the Amtrak.
Yeah.
And he looked like he was ready.
Looked vigorous, huh?
I mean, yeah, he looked better a few months ago than he did maybe even a year or 2 ago.
I see.
So I was surprised, but I guess he had his own calculations.
Maybe once he announced it, he felt
No,
reinvigorated.
I didn't see him before the announcement. After the announcement, I saw him before.
I see.
I was surprised, yeah.
What do you make of his recent endorsement of Zohran Mamdani? His endorsement came before most sort of mainstream Democrats came out to endorse him. In fact, I don't even think Hakeem Jeffries already endorsed him. Governor Hochul only endorsed Mamdani this week. The chair of the Democratic Party of New York still refuses to endorse Mamdani and says he's just not going to endorse him. That's Jay Jacobs. So what do you make of Jerry Nadler coming out and endorsing him relatively early?
I don't know. I don't know what to say. It was his decision. He didn't consult with me before or after. I don't know. I mean, it was surprising, but I guess he had his own reasons why.
Got it. So I know this might be a bit of a sore topic, but you defended Congressman Nadler's decision to vote in favor of President Obama's Iran deal. I think you got a lot of flack for it at the time in this community. So looking back and reflecting on everything that's happened since, so first the reaction, the ferocious reaction from the community itself, then Trump getting elected, ripping up the deal, and now we've already had that war between Iran and Israel. Of course, it was October 7th in the middle as well, and now we have Trump again. So looking back, how do you feel about supporting that decision to support the Iran deal?
So if you read my op-ed, I actually didn't support the Iran deal. No one actually read it.
Pretty sure I read it at the time, but no,
yeah.
I don't remember.
What I wrote was that I support Jerry Nadler's right to come out and support, and I brought out, I don't remember the exact op-ed, but I basically said that Jerry Nadler, someone that I highly respect, and he wrote at the time, and he actually made, I still think what he said if anything, Iran is the bigger threat than Iraq before we went into Iraq. Because he said, and he was probably right, and he said that if we're going to go into one country, we should invade Iran and not Iraq.
Interesting.
My point is that Jerry Nadler, people try to make him into this boogeyman. I said, I don't support their end deal. Who am I to support their end deal? I didn't support it. I'm not qualified to be for or against it. I just supported his right to his decision. And if you're talking about Jerry Nadler, there isn't a Jewish community today that would be where it is if not for Jerry Nadler. Now you're going to ask me, what do you mean by that? Every community that has a problem with a zoning issue, and every community does, not in Borough Park, but in New Jersey and in Rockland County and in other places, rely on the law that Jerry Nadler co-authored or was the primary sponsor. RU-LUPA, Religious Freedom Institutional, I can't even pronounce the word. But basically, it brings the federal government to defend you when a local government passes zoning laws that prohibit Jews, Orthodox Jews, from building a synagogue or a school or yeshiva. So it's the big bad Jerry Nadler that we have to be grateful for. So I don't like when people label people just because they disagree with you on an issue. Now you have every right to disagree with Jerry Nadler on the Iran deal or any other legislative initiatives that he supports, but don't call him an anti-Semite, anti-Jewish community, when in fact the opposite is true. So you can you can disagree. But don't do that. Those are what I'm telling you right now are the facts.
Right. Interesting.
And by the way, and the same goes when people are upset at Republicans, progressives. Everyone likes to label each other, racist and anti-Semite and anti-democracy when it suits them. So we have to be very, very, very careful. I get criticized all the time. Okay, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's good. You're saying you're like a little bit politically homeless, it seems.
No, I'm not homeless. Look, my grandmother used to joke. My grandmother, no longer alive, she had 2 sons. So she used to say in Yiddish, I'll translate. She said, when you take my 2 sons and mix them together, they'd be a perfect person. She used to say that on my uncle and on my father.
I see.
My point is that...
But each on their own is not good.
That's what she said. As a mother could point out the faults of her children. So I say the same thing about the Democrats and the Republicans. If you could mix them very well together, it would be perfect.
Basically, it sounds like you would prefer a centrist party.
I don't prefer anything. Look, in my line of work, I could sometimes approach a Democrat for issue A, and sometimes I can approach an issue, approach a Republican for issue B. I need to get the job done. I'm not an ideologue. People say, so what are you? I say, I'm an opportunist. And they look at it, oh, you're. I said, no, this is the reality. When You know, sometimes clients curse me out. There was one particular client who was very, very conservative. And he would curse me out. How do you hang out with this and this politician? I says, I hate to break this to you. You live in New York City. This elected official is supporting your cause,
Right.
your institution,
Right.
and I was hired
Right.
to represent you. So if I'm doing my job right, why
Yeah.
are you criticizing me? And he still wouldn't accept it.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. All right, so Ezra, where could people find you if they would like to engage you or retain you for your services?
They can call me on my telephone. They call me on my cell, in fact. I give out my cell number, 347-228-0989, or you can email me, Ezra, Ezra, at the Friedlander Group, TheFriedlanderGroup.com.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ezra, for joining us
My
for
pleasure.
this very informative interview. Thank you all for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe, like, comment, and share. That is the only way we can get this show off the ground and turn it into a very successful source of information about all matters related to the Jewish community. To contact us for advertising or other comments, please email info@themostershow.com. As I mentioned before, we're also going to assemble a panel to serve on our segment called the Anti-Semitism Court. To nominate yourself or someone else to sit on that panel, please email us at antisemitism@themostershow.com. Thank you, and see you next time.